It begins with silence, a silence so complete it feels designed. The streets of Pyongyang, wide and immaculate, are empty. Too empty. Every building stands in perfect symmetry, every banner polished, every portrait of Kim Jong Un gleaming like a mirror reflecting devotion. But beneath this symmetry lies a system that hides something vast and forbidden, a fortune so carefully veiled it seems to dissolve into the mist of secrecy that defines the entire nation. Imagine walking through this city for the first time, your footsteps echoing off the marble facades built not for citizens but for illusion. You'd see prosperity, pride, discipline. But you wouldn't see the truth. You wouldn't see where the gold flows. You wouldn't see how Kim Jong Un, isolated from the world, manages to be one of its wealthiest rulers. Every regime tells a story about itself. North Korea's story is one of sacrifice and self-reliance. It claims purity, untouched by the corruption of capitalism, untainted by Western greed. But behind the closed doors of Pyongyang's elite compounds, another reality unfolds: hidden accounts, smuggled luxury, secret bank codes memorized by a chosen few, a dynasty's wealth stored across continents, while the people it rules struggle to find rice. This is not a simple tale of dictatorship. It's the architecture of concealment, a state built to disguise fortune behind suffering. It starts in the 1970s under Kim Il-sung, when North Korea's isolation began to suffocate its economy. His son, Kim Jong-il, found a solution, not through industry, not through agriculture, but through deception. He created something the world had never seen before: a state-sponsored global network for illegal trade, counterfeit money, and luxury procurement. The goal was survival, but the method was greed. Under his command, the regime learned how to hide, not just weapons but wealth. The system grew, evolving into today's intricate network of shell companies, offshore accounts, and secret slush funds controlled by the Workers' Party's shadow offices. When Kim Jong-un inherited this empire, he inherited more than a country. He inherited a machine, one built to extract value from the world while appearing cut off from it. To understand how he hides his wealth, you have to understand this machine. It's called Bureau 39. To the outside world, it doesn't exist. To insiders, it's the regime's beating financial heart, a phantom department operating under the ruling party, answerable only to Kim himself. Bureau 39 manages foreign currency reserves, oversees illicit exports, and controls front companies scattered from Singapore to Switzerland. It deals in everything from coal and gold to arms and narcotics. It's been accused of counterfeiting 100 bills so perfect they've fooled American banks. But these accusations barely scratch the surface. What Bureau 39 really represents is the ultimate disguise: a financial ghost that moves billions through systems designed to catch nothing. You can't find Kim Jong-un's name on a single account. You won't see his initials on a property deed. His wealth lives through layers of proxies, trusted generals, loyal diplomats, front companies registered in distant capitals. A mansion in Vladivostok owned by a trading firm. A fleet of Mercedes imported through a Singaporean shell. Art, cash and gold moved across borders through networks of diplomats who carry immunity in their briefcases. Every transaction carefully scattered, every trail erased. To trace this money is to chase smoke. But how does a country under sanctions acquire billions in the first place? It begins at the borders. North Korea's geography, wedged between China and Russia, offers narrow corridors of opportunity. Through these corridors flow forbidden goods, minerals, seafood, coal, labor, even weapons technology. The profits are hidden behind legitimate trade fronts, often managed by family members of party officials. North Korean ships change their flags mid-sea. Their cargo manifests are rewritten. Their routes zigzag across neutral waters, disguising the origins of what they carry. At night, in small coastal cities like Rajin or Chongjin, foreign businessmen arrive quietly, escorted by plainclothes officers. Deals are made over tea, sealed in silence. Every ton of smuggled coal, every shipment of counterfeit cigarettes, every cyber attack that steals cryptocurrency, all of it feeds the same invisible stream. And that stream flows upward, toward one man. Imagine the paradox. a leader who preaches the purity of socialist sacrifice while indulging in luxuries imported through deceit. He rides imported horses across private estates, smokes foreign cigars, drinks rare French cognac. His yachts glide across the East Sea, their decks polished under the grey light of secrecy. His private island, sometimes called the North Korean Caribbean, hides underground tunnels that connect directly to military ports. Satellite images capture fleeting glimpses of these spaces, swimming pools, basketball courts, marble mansions, but the images don't show the mechanism that built them. An invisible economy running parallel to the state, powered by exploitation and guarded by fear. Within North Korea, the very concept of wealth is forbidden. There are no millionaires, at least not officially. The currency, the won, is nearly worthless beyond the country's borders. Yet in Pyongyang, a different class exists. The donju, the money masters. They live in apartments with imported furniture, eat fruit out of season, and own Chinese smartphones connected to the black market. But even they are temporary players in a system that never lets power slip too far from the center. Every donju's success depends on proximity to the regime, and every success can be erased overnight. For Kim Jong Un, these people serve a purpose. They simulate prosperity, attract loyalty, and most importantly, channel profits into his hidden network. They're allowed to taste wealth, but never to own it. Beyond North Korea's borders, Kim's hidden empire stretches through time zones and false names. There are accounts under entities that trade in minerals, seafood, and textiles. Some of these companies even participate in United Nations programs or legitimate aid operations, blending perfectly into the global financial system. Their profits are laundered through layers of intermediaries, often through banks in Southeast Asia or Europe that unknowingly process tainted money. It's a global shell game, and the pieces move constantly. When one route is exposed, another appears. Sanctions are mere speed bumps to a system designed to outlive them. Yet what makes Kim Jong Un's hidden fortune truly untouchable isn't just secrecy, it's psychology. North Korea's power lies in its unpredictability. Its threats keep the world at a distance, while its isolation keeps scrutiny impossible. Inside the country, fear ensures silence. Outside, bureaucracy ensures paralysis. Who would risk diplomatic collapse over tracing a dictator's yacht? Who would sacrifice regional stability to expose a few billion in hidden assets? This hesitation, this moral fatigue, is what shields Kim's empire. The world condemns but rarely acts, and every pause, every delay, every bureaucratic whisper of "not now" adds another layer of invisibility to his wealth. To truly understand how Kim hides his fortune, one must step inside his mirror world, a place where appearance and reality never align. Officially, North Korea is broke. Its citizens farm by hand, its factories crumble, its power flickers. Yet its leaders train, armored and luxurious, travels with imported wine, private chefs, and satellite communications. The gold-laden cutlery, the Italian suits, the German cars, they aren't random indulgences. They're symbols of victory, proof that isolation hasn't defeated him. Every luxury item smuggled past sanctions is more than comfort. It's a message. It says, "Even your rules cannot touch me." The secrecy surrounding Kim's wealth extends even to those closest to him. Ministers live in fear of vanishing without explanation. Bankers who manage foreign transfers often disappear after missions abroad. The regime erases people as easily as it moves money. Loyalty is not rewarded with trust. It's rewarded with survival. Only a handful of individuals, perhaps no more than a dozen, have access to the inner workings of Bureau 39. They manage accounts that could vanish overnight if one wrong word is spoken. They are both guardians and prisoners of the secret. Occasionally, a defector or investigator reveals fragments of the hidden network. They speak of suitcases filled with euros flown through Beijing, of North Korean agents operating luxury watch stores in Southeast Asia, of cryptocurrency thefts traced to Pyongyang cyber units. These digital heists, executed by the infamous Lazarus Group, represent the modern frontier of Kim's hidden wealth. Through malware, phishing schemes, and ransomware, billions are siphoned from unsuspecting banks and companies. Cryptocurrency provides what traditional smuggling once did, a path untraceable by conventional means. It's the new currency of dictatorship, invisible, decentralized, and borderless. But behind all this, behind the smuggling, the cyber attacks, the offshore companies, lies something more personal. Kim Jong Un's wealth is not simply about money, it's about survival. In his world, control equals existence. Wealth is his armor, his leverage, his language of power. It buys loyalty from generals, guarantees silence from bureaucrats, and ensures that even if his regime were to crumble, he could vanish into luxury somewhere far from Pyongyang's grey skyline. His fortune isn't stored in numbers, it's stored in trust, in fear, in the unbreakable chains of dependency he has forged around those who serve him. Imagine for a moment the paradox of those who protect this wealth. Men who live modestly, under constant surveillance, managing billions they will never touch. They walk through Pyongyang's deserted boulevards at dawn, past posters of the supreme leader smiling over the people, and know that every figure they've moved, every euro, every yen, every digital coin, strengthens the illusion. To them, the money isn't real, it's survival code. Their hands move in obedience, their minds trapped in secrecy. The world watches from afar, speculating, sanctioning, and wondering how a country so poor can project so much power. But the answer is here, hidden in invisible ledgers, in ships that disappear from radar, in diplomatic pouches that no scanner can open. It's in the silence of a system that has learned to speak through absence. To outsiders, this looks like madness. To Kim Jong Un, it's order. Night falls over Pyongyang. The city's lights form perfect lines, glowing dimly against the black horizon. Somewhere behind those lights, perhaps in a private villa, Kim Jong Un raises a glass. Outside, the people sleep, their dreams shaped by propaganda films and patriotic songs. Inside, the leader's world is quiet, calculated, untouchable. His wealth isn't in vaults, it's in shadows. And shadows in his world are the safest place to keep anything. The viewer feels it now, the contrast, the design, the precision of deception. What seemed like a poor, isolated regime begins to reveal its other face. Disciplined, calculated, predatory. Kim Jong-un's fortune is not hidden because he fears exposure. It's hidden because invisibility is power. The less the world can see, the more he controls. The first door has opened. The journey into North Korea's secret empire of wealth has just begun. The deeper you descend into North Korea's financial labyrinth, the less it resembles a state, and the more it becomes a living organism, one designed for survival through secrecy. It has veins, arteries, and a pulsing heart that never sleeps. Its blood isn't ideology or patriotism, it's money, foreign currency, gold, and now digital assets flow through this hidden anatomy, feeding the organs of power that keep the supreme leader's image untarnished. The regime's propaganda speaks of purity and self-reliance, but the system itself survives through deceit and manipulation, a paradox carefully engineered to be invisible to the outside world. The origins of this hidden wealth network go back to Kim Jong-il's reign, when North Korea's economy was collapsing under famine, sanctions, and international isolation. It was a time when millions starved, and yet the regime's elite continued to live in opulence. To sustain this illusion of stability, Kim Jong-il transformed North Korea's foreign operations into a global black market empire. He called it revolutionary self-reliance. In reality, it was organized crime wearing a revolutionary mask. Bureau 39, the secret office established under his command, became the command center for everything that couldn't exist officially. Counterfeiting US dollars, manufacturing methamphetamine, selling weapons to regimes under embargo, exporting counterfeit cigarettes, laundering cash through offshore banks. Every crime that could fund survival became a state enterprise. Kim Jong-un inherited this system, refined it and digitized it. What his father built with suitcases of cash, he expanded with servers, codes and networks of hackers trained in secrecy from childhood. It's no longer a simple flow of illicit trade. It's a hydra with many heads, each one hidden beneath the cover of diplomatic missions, shipping companies, trading firms, and cyber units. From Pyongyang's marble offices to obscure industrial parks in Dandong or Kuala Lumpur, Every node in this system is connected to the same destination, the Supreme Leader's invisible vault. Satellite images show what the eyes cannot. In the capital, behind the walls of the Kumsusan Palace and the ruling compounds near Ryongsong, lie underground facilities, not bunkers for war, but vaults for wealth. Defectors who once served within the elite whisper of sealed rooms where foreign cash is counted and catalogued, then flown out by diplomatic aircraft under false manifests. One account tells of a vault so vast that its air smells permanently of paper and metal, the scent of hidden billions. Outside the country, the tracks of this wealth are scattered like breadcrumbs. A company registered in Singapore trading seafood is in fact funneling funds for sanctioned mineral exports. A luxury hotel project in Cambodia receives investment from a North Korean cultural foundation that exists only on paper. Shipping records reveal freighters that vanish mid-journey, turning off their transponders as they cross the Yellow Sea, only to reappear days later under new names. Each of these transactions, when traced backward, ends in the same place, Bureau 39, and Bureau 39 ends with Kim. But how does a system this intricate remain untouched by the world's most powerful intelligence agencies? The answer lies in its design. North Korea doesn't hide in the shadows. It hides in plain sight. It uses the world's openness against itself. It registers shell companies in countries that value discretion over transparency. It invests through intermediaries who never appear North Korean. It uses the banking systems of nations unwilling to sacrifice profit for principle. The result is a global illusion of legitimacy. On paper, these companies are clean. In reality, they are arteries of a state that feeds on deception. China, in particular, plays an ambiguous role in this shadow economy. Officially, Beijing enforces UN sanctions. In practice, the border cities like Dandong, Hanchun, and Yanji remain lifelines for North Korean trade. Chinese brokers handle transactions for North Korean entities, taking commissions that keep both sides quiet. Shipments of coal labeled as Russian, seafood marked Made in China, labor contracts disguised as cultural exchanges, all flow across the Yalu River. Money crosses back the same way, in cash or cryptocurrency. For Kim Jong Un, China is both the shield and the gatekeeper. It allows enough smuggling to sustain his regime, but never enough independence to let him defy Beijing's control completely. Then there's Russia, the secondary pillar of North Korea's financial survival. In recent years, as Western sanctions on Moscow deepened, a strange alliance re-emerged. Kim's regime found new opportunities in Russia's desperation. North Korean laborers were quietly reintroduced into Russian territories under humanitarian pretexts. Payments for these workers, often in rubles or cryptocurrency, are channeled through covert accounts controlled by Pyongyang's trade representatives. Kim's regime now profits from the global instability that others fear. War, chaos, embargoes, these are not obstacles, they are opportunities. The darker the world becomes, the more invisible his fortune grows. One of the regime's most lucrative operations hides behind a simple facade, the export of human labor. Tens of thousands of North Koreans are sent abroad under state contracts to Russia, China, Africa, the Middle East. They build skyscrapers, mine resources, sew garments, and cook in restaurants. Their wages, often paid in cash, never reach them. Instead, up to 90% is confiscated by the regime. These workers live under surveillance, their passports seized, their every movement monitored. Some have not seen home in decades, their suffering funds luxury. The irony is merciless. The sweat of the poorest pays for the indulgence of the richest. Another stream of wealth comes from an empire of cybercrime. Kim Jong Un, educated in Switzerland and obsessed with technology, recognized early that cyberspace offered the perfect battlefield. No borders, no sanctions, no visibility. From anonymous office blocks in Pyongyang and remote sites near Chilbosan, elite hacker units, the Lazarus Group, Blue Norov, and Dariel, operate day and night. They steal cryptocurrency, hack banks, manipulate SWIFT transfers, and launch ransomware attacks. The FBI has linked these groups to thefts totaling billions of dollars, money funneled directly into the regime's secret reserves. These hackers are not freelancers. They are soldiers of a digital army, working not for profit, but for national duty. The stolen funds are laundered through complex chains of digital wallets, converted into cash through exchanges in Asia and Eastern Europe, and then absorbed by front companies under Bureau 39. Every step is orchestrated with precision, every signature forged with the patience of a chess player. This digital fortune is perhaps the most dangerous part of Kim's hidden empire, intangible, untaxable, and immune to geography. Yet even the cyber realm is only one piece of a larger mosaic. The regime also profits from arms sales, from small weapons to missile technology. Though heavily restricted by UN sanctions, these trades continue through intermediaries. North Korea supplies weapons to African and Middle Eastern governments, sometimes even to rebel groups. The transactions are disguised as agricultural or construction contracts, with payments routed through third-party countries. A North Korean engineer working on a mining project in Sudan might in reality be supervising the installation of missile components. The buyers pay in cash or resources, gold, diamonds, oil, which are quietly transferred into the regime's secret reserves. Inside North Korea, this hidden wealth manifests as symbols of divine privilege. In the Ryongsong residence complex, Kim Jong Un's main palace, stands an artificial lake with swan-shaped boats, a collection of luxury cars, private cinemas, and even a personal railway station. His train, armored and slow, carries everything from imported wine to bulletproof limousines. Along its route, stations are sealed off hours before his arrival. No one sees him board. No one sees him leave. The journey itself is a metaphor for his rule, motion without transparency. Defectors who once worked for the regime describe entire warehouses of foreign goods: Rolex watches, Italian suits, French cosmetics, German beer, Russian caviar. These are not for the people. They are distributed as gifts to ensure loyalty among officials and generals. In North Korea, gifts are not tokens of generosity. They are instruments of control. When a general receives a Mercedes, he doesn't feel privileged. He feels watched. His wealth, like his loyalty, can be revoked at any moment. Even the symbols of ideology serve this system of wealth. The national art studios that produce portraits of the Kims also export paintings abroad, selling them to collectors through hidden channels. Revolutionary art, painted by anonymous state artists, becomes a source of foreign currency. In one European auction, a North Korean painting sold under a false label, the profits quietly wired to a Chinese intermediary. Every brushstroke, every sculpture, every cultural product can become part of the economy of concealment. The most unsettling part of this network is how normalized it has become within the regime. For the elite, corruption is not a vice, it's the system itself. Bureau 39 operates with bureaucratic efficiency, salaries, hierarchies, performance evaluations, even patriotic slogans hung over desks where laundering operations are conducted. Employees recite oaths of loyalty not to the state, but to the eternal prosperity of the leader. They are told that what they do, even if it breaks international law, is an act of devotion. Morality has been rewritten. Crime has been sanctified. International efforts to stop this hidden empire have failed repeatedly. Sanctions freeze accounts, seize ships, blacklist companies, yet new ones emerge almost instantly. Each closure is anticipated, each obstacle replaced with another route. Investigators describe it as fighting smoke with a net. The regime has mastered the art of adaptation. It doesn't resist pressure. It absorbs it, redirects it, uses it. Behind this resilience lies one principle: fear. Inside North Korea, fear replaces trust. Every official knows that exposure means disappearance. Every banker who manages an offshore account understands that betrayal is a death sentence not just for him, but for his family. This terror ensures silence far more effectively than loyalty ever could. It's what keeps the entire system from collapsing. To the outside observer, Kim Jong Un's wealth is an unsolved mystery, but within the architecture of his regime, it's the only truth that matters. Money is not just the foundation of his power, it's the proof of his divinity. The regime's mythology portrays him as a leader beyond material need, yet his world is built entirely upon material control. Every imported perfume bottle, Every armored limousine, every gold watch presented at a military parade tells the same story. The divine must be seen to possess everything, even as the people possess nothing. And so the contradiction continues. A nation starving under the weight of its own opulence, a people told to worship sacrifice while their leader drinks from crystal glasses. The illusion holds because it must. For Kim Jong Un, transparency is annihilation. To reveal his wealth is to reveal his vulnerability. That's why he hides not just his money, but his method. His power depends on invisibility, and invisibility has become his most valuable currency. This is the revelation the world rarely sees, the truth that North Korea's poverty is deliberate. It's not a failure of the system, it's the camouflage that conceals the empire beneath, a facade of struggle to protect an empire of wealth, a theater of suffering to hide the stage of indulgence. In the distance, Pyongyang's skyline glows, sterile, orderly, almost tranquil, but behind those lights, an invisible ledger keeps the regime alive. Every digit, every transfer, every code contributes to one purpose: the eternal preservation of the illusion. The wealth remains unseen, but its power is everywhere. And the deeper you look, the clearer it becomes. In North Korea, what you see has never mattered. Only what you don't. There is a strange quiet inside the capital at night. The streets are lined with neon-red propaganda banners, their slogans pulsing dimly through the fog. Loyalty forever to the Supreme Commander. From the outside, it looks like devotion. But within that devotion, there is a void, one carved by hunger, fear, and invisible debt. Beneath the monuments, beneath the rhythmic chants of schoolchildren rehearsing their loyalty, lies a truth too cruel to admit aloud. The entire nation is an economic machine built not to prosper, but to sustain one man's illusion of invincibility. Imagine a factory worker in Hamhung. Her hands are cracked from cold and overuse. She earns barely enough to buy a few kilograms of cornmeal a week. Every morning she bows before portraits of Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong Il, whispering thanks for the abundance provided by their bloodline. But she knows deep down that her labor doesn't feed her family. It feeds the regime. Her quota goes to export shipments, coal, textiles, chemicals, sold abroad through front companies. The money never reaches her. It's rerouted layer by layer into the secret reserves of Bureau 39. Her hunger funds his luxury. Her silence sustains his disguise. The tragedy of North Korea isn't just oppression, it's participation. The people are forced to play their roles in the theater of false prosperity. Markets operate in whispers, bribes are disguised as gifts, and every act of survival becomes an act of submission. Farmers hide a portion of their harvest to trade on the black market. Soldiers sell stolen fuel. Officials forge ration cards. Each small act of disobedience becomes a form of resistance, and yet every transaction still circulates within the system that enslaves them. The shadow economy is both rebellion and control, designed so that even defiance feeds the state. In Pyongyang there exists a parallel society, the elite zone known as the capital within the capital. Here, power isn't measured in ideology but in access. Access to imported goods, to information, to security. The higher one climbs in loyalty, the closer one moves toward the center of invisible wealth. The inner circle lives behind guarded gates. Their children attend elite schools where they're taught English and Russian. Their wives wear European perfumes, bought through diplomatic channels. They dine on foreign wines while reciting revolutionary slogans. They drive past starving peasants without lowering their tinted windows. In their eyes, the suffering of others isn't tragedy. It's proof of order. But even within this privileged circle, no one truly feels safe. Kim Jong Un's rule is constructed on calculated paranoia. Loyalty is rewarded with surveillance. Promotion comes with new privileges and new eyes watching every gesture. The closer one gets to power, the more fragile that proximity becomes. A whisper of disloyalty, a missed salute, a comment overheard by the wrong person can end in disappearance. Sometimes, the punishment isn't death, it's erasure. One day an official's portrait hangs in the Hall of Merit. The next it's gone, as if he never existed. His family vanishes, his home becomes someone else's. His name fades from records. This fear creates a strange kind of discipline. Even those who help move the leader's money, bankers, diplomats, cyber operatives, live like prisoners. They are both valuable and disposable. Some are summoned to internal education sessions, where they're reminded that revealing a single detail of their work is treason. They swear oaths under portraits of Kim Jong Un, pledging to guard the financial secrets of the revolution with their lives. The irony is complete. In a country where faith replaces freedom, even crime becomes sacred. There are stories whispered among defectors about the punishments that await those who fail to protect the leader's fortune. A banker once stationed in Eastern Europe returned home after a small accounting error. He was never seen again. A trade delegate in China, caught pocketing a fraction of his commission, was reportedly executed in front of his colleagues. Entire families have disappeared because a father's wire transfer raised suspicion. The wealth of Kim Jong Un is built not only on exploitation, but on fear so total it erases the boundary between obedience and survival. For ordinary citizens, the cost of this hidden empire is measured in absence. Absent food, absent medicine, absent hope. Hospitals operate without electricity. Teachers are paid in cigarettes. Children collect grass to make soup. When floods destroy crops, the regime blames imperialist sanctions, not its own hoarded resources. Aid shipments from abroad are quietly diverted, sold on the black market, or redirected to military elites. International relief agencies often find their supplies missing the moment they cross the border. Trucks meant to carry grain arrive in Pyongyang, laden instead with luxury alcohol. Hunger is not an accident, it is a currency of control. Inside the walls of Kim Jong Un's private residences, another reality unfolds. Surveillance footage smuggled by defectors shows imported hardwood floors, grand pianos, and banquet halls filled with delicacies. There are separate storage rooms for French cheeses, Japanese whiskey, Swiss chocolate. A former chef who once worked for the Kim family described scenes of surreal decadence, parties with imported lobsters and champagne, even during the famine years. While entire provinces starved, the ruling family tasted every flavor of the world. Yet even this opulence carries a shadow of paranoia. Every meal is tested for poison. Every wine bottle uncorked by an assistant who might vanish the next morning. Luxury here isn't pleasure, it's power theater. The regime performs wealth to itself to remind everyone who is divine. Kim's imported limousines, his racehorses, his yachts, each one a silent sermon on hierarchy. It's not enough for him to live well. He must be seen as living beyond human reach. That is how the myth survives. In the countryside, the contrast becomes unbearable. Farmers eat bark to survive harsh winters. Families burn furniture for heat. Entire towns are ordered to attend self-criticism sessions where people confess imaginary failings, being lazy, ungrateful, insufficiently devoted. They cry, they beg forgiveness, and return home to empty pantries. The cycle continues. The belief that suffering itself is loyalty becomes the moral glue holding the nation together. The people endure misery so their leader can remain pure. This psychological manipulation is deliberate. Kim Jong Un's regime has weaponized scarcity into faith. When food runs out, propaganda films show him visiting farms, smiling among fields of abundance that don't exist. When blackouts darken entire provinces, state media airs footage of glowing streets. When the outside world accuses him of hoarding wealth, the narrative becomes one of national victimhood. The world fears our strength, and so they starve us. In this way, every truth becomes a tool. The regime has transformed deception into destiny. But within this web of lies, there are cracks. Some of those who once served the system begin to see its rot. A diplomat in Malaysia watches millions laundered through shell companies and realizes he is disposable. A cyber operative, proud of his loyalty, begins to question why the money he steals never reaches the people. A smuggler on the Chinese border, forced to pay endless bribes, wonders if patriotism is just a word for obedience. These are quiet awakenings, dangerous ones. Each carries the risk of exile, imprisonment, or execution, but they represent something the regime fears more than sanctions: awareness. Every time someone glimpses the truth, the machinery tightens. Surveillance deepens, Border guards receive orders to shoot defectors on sight. Informants multiply. Propaganda slogans grow louder to drown out private doubt. And still whispers spread. Someone in the countryside sees a foreign luxury item and wonders, why does our leader have what we cannot even imagine? Someone in Pyongyang watches a smuggled South Korean drama and realizes that people elsewhere laugh freely, eat well, and live without fear. For Kim Jong Un, these moments are existential threats, because once curiosity ignites, obedience begins to die. Yet the paradox remains. The regime's hidden wealth cannot exist without poverty. It depends on it. Poverty is the smoke that hides the fire. If the people were fed, if the economy prospered, the illusion would collapse. They would begin to ask where the money goes. They would begin to see. So, the deprivation continues, not as a failure but as policy. A deliberate starvation of the many to protect the invisibility of the few. Every currency transfer, every barrel of smuggled oil, every stolen cryptocurrency transaction adds another brick to the invisible fortress that guards Kim's fortune. But the foundation of that fortress is fear, and fear is fragile. It corrodes from within. The question that lingers silent and dangerous is this: how long can a system built on secrecy survive the weight of its own lies? Night again in Pyongyang. From the top of the Juche Tower, the city glows faintly in the distance, each building's light carefully timed, powered only during the leader's televised appearances. Below, families sit in darkness, sharing hushed prayers that sound more like survival codes. Above them, the regime counts its money, and somewhere, in the stillness of his private palace, Kim Jong Un looks out across the capital, a man surrounded by abundance but haunted by the knowledge that his wealth depends on a nation's hunger. This is the descent, the realization that beneath the propaganda and marble, beneath the slogans and silence, lies a truth both horrifying and precise. The poverty of millions is not a byproduct, it's the camouflage of power. The people's suffering is the veil that conceals a dictator's fortune. Every starving face is a lock on the vault. Every silence a seal on the secret. And behind that secret, behind the money, the power, the myth, stands one man, convinced that the world must never see what he truly owns. Because if they did, the illusion would break. And with it, the only thing keeping his kingdom alive. The descent is complete. But the exposure, the unveiling of the empire he built in the shadows, is still to come. The first thing you notice when the illusion starts to fracture is how ordinary it all looks. Wealth in North Korea hides behind plainness. The buildings that hold millions are dull concrete boxes. The offices where offshore accounts are managed resemble outdated government bureaus. The embassies that launder money through cultural exchange programs display faded portraits of leaders in their windows. The country has turned concealment into art, wealth disguised as emptiness, power disguised as poverty. It begins in Pyongyang but stretches far beyond. There's a trail that winds through Asia, Europe, the Middle East and Africa, an invisible empire that trades in shadows. The companies that carry Kim Jong Un's fortune don't bear his name or flag. They wear masks. Korea Changwon Trading, Sinyang Export Company, Tanchon Commercial Bank. Harmless names on paper, but each one a gear in the machinery of deception. These entities buy and sell coal, gold, seafood, minerals and labor, often under foreign registries. They exist to move wealth quietly, to create legal facades for illegal gain. In Malaysia, investigators once discovered a company that imported luxury vehicles for cultural promotion. It was, in reality, a front for Bureau 39's procurement network. The cars never reached North Korean soil. They were disassembled and reassembled across borders, piece by piece, to bypass sanctions. In Singapore, a seafood importer operated by a North Korean national funneled funds to Pyongyang through seemingly legitimate exports. In Africa, statues commissioned from North Korean artists stood as symbols of friendship, but their payments in cash and resources went directly into the regime's hidden coffers. Every continent bears fingerprints of this empire, faint, deliberate, erased before discovery. At the core of this operation are the trading companies, entities that appear independent but are in fact extensions of the state. Each one reports indirectly to Bureau 39, which in turn answers to Kim Jong Un. Their directors are chosen from families with proven loyalty, people whose lives are bound to the regime's fate. They live abroad, often in China or Southeast Asia, moving millions through international banks. Their job is not to profit but to protect the flow, to ensure that even under sanctions, money never stops moving upward. What makes this system nearly impossible to dismantle is its fluidity. When one company is sanctioned, another emerges within weeks. When a ship is seized, another sails under a different name, flying a different flag. North Korean vessels change their identities mid-sea, switching transponders to appear as entirely new ships. Their cargo manifests are rewritten. Some load coal in Nampo and deliver it to Chinese ports under the guise of Russian exports. Others smuggle oil back into the country using ship-to-ship transfers in international waters, often under cover of darkness. These operations sustain the regime's hidden economy, a theater of invisibility performed on open seas, and while the world chases ships, Kim Jong Un's agents chase data. They exploit the cracks of globalization. Cryptocurrency markets, shell banks, fintech companies with weak oversight. North Korea has become the most sanctioned country on earth, and yet, paradoxically, one of the most adaptive. Its cyber units have stolen digital assets worth billions, funding the same programs that keep its population in chains. The money flows from anonymous wallets, converted into foreign currencies, transferred through layers of intermediaries, and finally consolidated under names no one can trace. Each successful theft becomes another victory against the outside world, a symbolic revenge against nations that deny them legitimacy. The regime broadcasts none of this, of course, but inside the walls of Bureau 39, such operations are celebrated like military triumphs. Charts of foreign accounts hang beside portraits of the supreme leader. Transactions are toasted with imported liquor. The officials who oversee these operations are treated as soldiers, not in uniform, but in suits, not on battlefields, but in bank terminals. The wealth itself, once laundered, takes on new shapes. Some of it becomes gold bars stored in underground vaults beneath Pyongyang. Some becomes foreign currency, kept in the hands of diplomats abroad. Some becomes property, luxury villas in Vladivostok, Macau, or Beijing, registered under fake Chinese identities. A few pieces of real estate in Europe are rumored to be owned by front companies controlled by the regime. Others exist as offshore investments, bonds, stocks, accounts in Caribbean havens under aliases so distant that even the paper trails seem fictional. Every part of this network serves one purpose: to ensure that Kim Jong Un remains untouchable even if his country collapses. The dynasty has learned from history. They saw what happened to Gaddafi when his assets were frozen, to Saddam when his palaces were bombed. They know that survival requires mobility, the ability to vanish into wealth that no one can seize. Kim's fortune isn't meant for display. It's meant for escape. Behind the propaganda posters that proclaim eternal prosperity under the Marshal lies a private contingency plan. Intelligence leaks from defectors suggest that Kim's inner circle maintains secret exit routes through Russia and China, funded entirely by offshore reserves. These routes are designed not for soldiers or citizens, but for the elite, the families who manage the hidden wealth. In the event of regime collapse, they have planes, ships, and funds prepared. The people, meanwhile, have faith, the only currency they're allowed to own. Inside the regime's most secure complexes, a handful of trusted accountants manage ledgers written not on paper, but on memory. They memorize account numbers, encryption keys, bank routes. These individuals live like ghosts. No personal property, no communication with outsiders, no visible lives. Their entire existence is the protection of invisible treasure. To ensure secrecy, many of them never meet Kim directly. Orders come through intermediaries. Each link in the chain knows only enough to perform their role, never the whole. It's an architecture of trust built entirely on fear. Yet even within this precision, cracks form. The system's secrecy depends on its servants, and its servants are human. They make mistakes, they harbor doubt, they dream of escape. A few have fled, diplomats who defected in Europe, traders who vanished in China, hackers who smuggled data out before disappearing. Each defection reveals a fragment of truth, a glimpse into the regime's hidden empire. The world learns of accounts in Macau, of cyber heists in Bangladesh, of gold shipments that never existed on record. Every leak exposes a thread, but the full tapestry remains obscured. What makes this deception endure is the world's complicity. Banks ignore anomalies. Nations hesitate to confront China, the regime's enabler. Corporations driven by profit turn blind eyes to suspicious partners. The sanctions regime is a sieve, a bureaucratic gesture against an adversary that has mastered improvisation. The United Nations issues resolutions, the United States freezes assets, Europe debates compliance. But the network adapts. Each closure births two replacements. The truth is uncomfortable. The world needs the illusion. North Korea's poverty serves a narrative of containment. As long as it appears weak, its crimes seem manageable. To expose the scale of its wealth would mean admitting that the global financial system, with all its rules, oversight and morality, can be manipulated by a country most consider broken. It would mean accepting that secrecy itself has become a currency more valuable than gold. There are satellites that capture images of Kim Jong Un's estates, sprawling compounds hidden in forests, guarded by walls and anti-air defenses. One near Wonsan stretches for miles. Beaches, horse stables, yachts docked in private coves. Another, near Samjeon, disguised as a revolutionary retreat, contains underground tunnels and helicopter pads. These are not symbols of governance. They are fortresses of isolation, built to withstand collapse. Even his residences are escape plans, self-contained kingdoms within the kingdom. The wealth that built them doesn't exist on paper. It flows through bodies, human conduits of loyalty. Generals, ministers, relatives, each entrusted with fragments of the fortune, none with the whole. Their rewards are lavish, but conditional. Disobedience means annihilation. In 2017, one of Kim's top officials, accused of corruption and disloyalty, was executed with an anti-aircraft gun. His sin? Hoarding too much of the wealth meant for the regime. Fear remains the regulator. But money, even hidden, leaves traces. A rare painting auctioned in Vienna bears a style known only to North Korea's Mansudae art studio. A private jet purchased by a mysterious buyer in Moscow matches the model spotted later in Pyongyang. Luxury watches once thought to have been sold to Middle Eastern collectors appear on the wrists of North Korean elites during televised parades. Each trace is a ghost, proof that the invisible empire is in fact everywhere. When the regime celebrates, the illusion reaches its peak. National holidays see parades of soldiers, tanks, and synchronized dances. The leader waves from a balcony, smiling beneath banners of sacrifice and unity. But in the background, in private banquet halls, imported champagne is poured. While the people chant, "Long live our Marshal," his inner circle toasts quietly to another successful quarter. Another shipment gone unseen. Another account filled. Propaganda films show fields of wheat, while the actual fields lie barren. The broadcasted abundance is a mirage powered by hidden billions. And the greatest irony of all is this. Kim Jong Un's fortune could feed his entire nation many times over. His hidden reserves, if exposed, would dwarf North Korea's GDP. Yet the regime will never release that wealth, because the poverty of his people is what keeps him divine. A leader who saves them would no longer be a god. He would be human, and in North Korea, humanity is weakness. This is the exposure, the revelation that the regime's grandeur is a mask for organized deception on a global scale. That the skyscrapers in Pyongyang were built not for citizens, but for appearances. That every donation to the revolution is a tax to fund luxury. That every sanction the world imposes only teaches the regime new ways to hide. The illusion of poverty protects the reality of power. The image of isolation hides the empire of access. The world sees darkness over Pyongyang and calls it tragedy. Kim Jong Un sees it and calls it camouflage. As dawn breaks over the Taedong River, the city glows in shades of grey and gold. The monuments stand unshaken. The banners still flutter. But somewhere beneath the soil of the regime's foundations lie vaults of cash, gold, and digital wealth. And within those vaults lies the truth of North Korea, that its survival depends not on belief, not on ideology, but on the art of perfect concealment. The exposure is not enough to destroy him. Not yet. The world sees the edges, but not the core. The final revelation, the haunting truth of what it all means, waits in the silence that follows. The reflection comes next. It is dawn in Pyongyang. The sky over the Taedong River is the color of old steel, washed in that gray stillness that precedes every new illusion. From the Yushe Tower, the city looks tranquil, obedient, eternal. Statues glisten in the mist. The portraits of the Kims stare down from their marble pedestals. And beneath it all, beneath the asphalt, beneath the perfectly choreographed parades, beneath the silence that feels like devotion, there lies something deeper, the truth of what it costs to sustain a god. Kim Jong Un's empire is not a nation, it's a mirror, a reflection of human fear polished so perfectly that it blinds those who look too long. On one side, the world sees isolation, poverty, fanatic loyalty. On the other, unseen, there are vaults of gold, encrypted wallets, foreign accounts, ships that vanish and reappear, and a dynasty that moves through shadows as easily as it breathes. He has built an economy not of production, but of illusion, a state where invisibility is wealth and deception is policy. But what kind of world allows this to endure? How does one man hide billions while an entire people starve? The answer, as it turns out, is not simply tyranny, it's complicity. Every bank that failed to question an unusual transaction, every country that valued diplomacy over truth, every corporation that looked the other way when a shipment seemed suspicious, all have helped build the walls around Kim Jong Un's hidden throne. The global economy, designed to trace everything, has learned to tolerate what it cannot afford to confront. His wealth is not just hidden from the world, it's hidden within it. Imagine for a moment the balance he must maintain. To the outside world, he must appear isolated, the misunderstood enemy. To his people, divine, the eternal protector. To his generals, invincible, the man who can buy anything anywhere. He rules not through abundance but through contrast. The sight of light in the midst of hunger, of luxury in the midst of despair. It's a visual theology, a religion of hierarchy, where every object, every possession is sacred proof of superiority. This is the psychology of control. The people must believe that his wealth is not greed but destiny, that his abundance is not theft but cosmic balance, the reward for his divine bloodline. They must believe their suffering is his sacrifice. This illusion, perfected over decades, has become the regime's most powerful weapon. It kills curiosity before it's born. It replaces envy with reverence and hunger with faith. But inside his palaces, far from the banners and the chants, there must be moments of silence, moments when even Kim Jong Un can hear the faint hum of the world beyond the walls, a world that eats freely, speaks freely, dreams freely. Does he wonder what they would see if the walls came down? Does he imagine how quickly the myth would dissolve if the vaults were opened, the ledgers made public, the wealth returned to the hands from which it was stolen? Or has the illusion consumed even him, the man who hides behind it? Power sustained by fear is never stable. It must constantly renew itself through ritual and repression. Each day, the regime recreates the illusion, a theater that requires perfect synchronization. The propaganda films, the parades, the orchestrated tears of citizens, the silent obedience of the military. It's a performance that consumes the nation. And yet every performance eventually ends. The curtain must fall, the lights must fade, and the truth must step forward. The cracks are already visible. They start small, whispers in markets, rumors in border towns, fragments of foreign broadcasts. They spread through USB drives, smuggled smartphones, forbidden movies. A young woman in Chongjin sees a South Korean drama and realizes for the first time that laughter can exist without permission. A student in Pyeongseong hacks into a restricted network and discovers that their eternal enemies live longer, freer, happier lives. Curiosity becomes contagion. In a nation where knowledge is outlawed, even a single fact can be revolutionary. Kim's hidden wealth cannot protect him from that. Money can buy fear but not faith. It can build walls but not eternity. The same global web that shields his transactions can one day expose them. The same tools his hackers use to steal can one day be turned against him. And the same hunger that sustains his power can one day devour it. History has a cruel symmetry. It waits, patient and silent, like the frozen rivers of his homeland, calm on the surface but restless beneath. There is a story told by defectors of North Korean workers in foreign lands who, once away from their minders, weep not for what they have lost, but for what they've realized they never had. They speak of their first taste of freedom, their first unmonitored conversation, their first meal chosen, not assigned. They describe a silence unlike any in North Korea, a silence not of fear but of peace. It's then they understand the scale of the deception, that their entire lives were spent preserving the comfort of a man who never truly saw them. The world often imagines North Korea as frozen in time, a relic untouched by modernity, but in truth, it is a reflection of the modern world's darkest genius, the ability to make reality optional. Kim Jong Un's fortune is not an anomaly, it's a prophecy, a reminder that in an age of data, invisibility is the highest form of power. While the world argues over morality, the systems that protect men like him evolve faster than justice can follow. His hidden billions are not just a crime. They're a lesson in how easily truth can be erased when convenience demands it. There will come a day when the lights in Pyongyang flicker for the last time, when the statues, untended, begin to crack under their own weight, when the propaganda films stop playing and the faces of the Kims fade from their marble frames. On that day, someone will open the ledgers, someone will trace the money. They'll find accounts in places no one expected, fortunes buried beneath decades of silence, and they will understand that while the people of North Korea starved, their leader was never poor, only hidden. And when the world sees that truth, it will be forced to confront something even harder to face. That it wasn't ignorance that kept him rich. It was indifference, the comfort of not knowing, the ease of believing that poverty and tyranny are distant things, sealed behind borders and ideology. But the wealth of a dictator never exists in isolation. It bleeds through systems, banks, markets, the very structures the rest of the world depends on. In some way, we all helped build his empire. Perhaps that is the final irony, that Kim Jong Un's fortune, born in secrecy, fed by deceit and hidden by fear, is not truly invisible. It's everywhere, in the global trade routes that sustain it, in the data networks that conceal it, in the silence of nations that tolerate it. His wealth is not just his, it's the world's reflection, a mirror of its failure to see. And so, as dawn gives way to daylight over Pyongyang, the monuments gleam once more. The people march, the anthems play, the illusion continues. But beneath that illusion, the truth remains, silent and heavy as stone. Somewhere, in a sealed vault, lies the symbol of it all. A briefcase filled with foreign currency, guarded by men who will never spend it, belonging to a man who can never truly own it. Because in the end, the tragedy of Kim Jong Un's hidden wealth is not just what it conceals, it's what it costs. It costs a nation its dignity, it costs generations their lives, it costs the world its honesty, and like all illusions built on suffering, it will one day collapse. Not with an explosion, but with a whisper, when the silence finally breaks and the world at last chooses to see.